This is gonna be a good one, I can already tell. So let's start off introducing our lovely players here in the bottom left hand corner of the big Jagannatha. We have the red Zerg player playing for Afrika Freaks. It is DRG.
And spawning here at the top right corner of the map, he is the blue Protoss representing Team Alpha X. Give it up for ZOUN.
Already going with that almost certain nowadays hatch block. Just sending out the probe first things first into the game. And we talked about it a million times already. It's just a nice and good way to just annoy your opponent a little bit. But I think most Zergs nowadays are just kind of too used to it. And like usual, we see DRG just taking the third without even trying to take the natural.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely in the meta these days that a lot of these Protoss at the very least, Korean Protoss, does send their probe out a little bit early. Now that is just to disrupt the the economy just a tad, as the the drones will have to travel just a bit further and then in order to start mining. But also it's a little bit of an economic I guess poke there for ZOUN, as he has to send that probe earlier, a little bit earlier on. Does miss out some of the mining time, but it does in the end, I think, hurts the Zerg a bit more.
Yeah, just slightly. It kind of helps that nowadays there are not many like super duper aggressive Protoss builds you can do against Zerg in the early game. Not most that are just unknown to Zerg players, so they're not actually even prepared for it. So most of the Zergs are actually taking even a 28, 29 archery. Like this one is going to be a 30 arch, which is kind of standard. That it's not something that was actually super common in the past. Like you were supposed to take your third archer a little bit later on, but nowadays Zerg players are just kind of taking the third as quick as possible without really minding too much anything too aggressive. We see a Stargate in the first game of this series, which is completely understandable. Jagannatha, big map, lots of dead air space. So makes it for a very good Stargate map.
Yeah, and one of the good things about having the third base, or actually the second base on the natural dirt base, is that there's not a lot of initial creep there connecting the bases. So the Zerg is gonna have to make sure that he's got the spore callers in order to prepare for the incoming Oracle, or at least have two queens parked there. So as we can see, ZOUN does actually open up with a Void Ray first.
Yeah, and Talakan still follow up. So I doubt we're gonna see ZOUN diving too deeply into that Stargate tech. Just gonna deny some vision, maybe get a couple oracles, as you were saying, to get some map control. I doubt there will be many more Void Rays, so just kind of nice and steady. This might very well be some kind of resonating glaives kind of a timing attack.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the idea is to open up with Stargate, get that Void Ray to pick off any close by overlords, and then go for that resonating glaives upgrade and kind of do a timing attack while getting the dirt, of course, as well. This is not all in; it's just a 4-gate glaive of depth timing, so not super all in. And at the very least, you can at least retreat if it gets too much to handle.
Just kind of trying to abuse the huge distance between natural, third, and main. We see ZOUN also taking this proxy pylon over here on the left side of the map, which is kind of an interesting play. Not really for reinforcement, just to probably speed up the process of getting adepts through the map, which is I feel like it's pretty interesting. I don't think it's gonna really be too much of a change in how stuff should go. So yeah, let's see how this goes. We see a couple of Zerglings trying to get some damage on ZOUN side of the map. But I doubt it's gonna be like any real damage happening soon for the Zerg players. But let's see how ZOUN actually plays these out, because he has a sizable amount of adepts out already.
Yeah, 11 adepts total, and yeah, DRG has no idea that this is coming. No overlords or anything, no link spotters, and here we go. Adept's gonna go ahead and shade in here, and there's only 2 queens to defend.
Oh, it's already a couple drones falling left and right. So gonna be a total of 4. These adepts are gonna find a very easy way into the main. Shade is about to complete, more drones are about to fall. Even a queen is looking dire right now. 2 queens down. These adepts are just not falling yet. There are 6 roaches incoming, but the damage is kind of there for ZOUN. Probably another shade is gonna go in and into the third or even out of there. But so many drones, so many Zerglings, so many queens are actually falling right now. Looks like in the end, all of the adepts are gonna be cleared. But DRG is gonna be finding himself more than 10 workers behind. And there are 3 Void Rays made at a time. From ZOUN, triple Stargate. And this will lead him into a fairly confident mid to late game scenario if he keeps on pumping out those Void Rays.
Yeah, the ideal, kind of next move for the Zerg is to go for that counterattack, because you got, roaches. You make a lot of roaches against a lot of Blade adepts, which, roaches does counter adepts pretty fairly. But making all those Void Rays, that means that kind of shuts down all the counterattack that DRG wants to go for. And now he is going to go ahead and be down 65 to 67 workers. And on top of that, he's got to deal with these Void Rays that's incoming. He is throwing down the Hydralisk Den and getting that +1 range attack weapons upgrade. But I don't know if the Hydralisk will be out quite in time yet.
And I see ZOUN already being on top of this. Templar Archives is already halfway through. 6 more gateways incoming, as well as +1 ground weapons to probably support +1 zealots once the time is nigh. We see DRG sending quite a strong contingent of units through the map. These are slow roaches though. Void Rays are gonna have a very easy time chasing them down. And I've seen Sushi and Catharsis in the chat point out that it was very interesting to choose Jagan Alpha as the first map. It's a big one. It is widely considered to be like the Zerg map of the patch. But we see ZOUN have a very clear game plan into this first game of the series. And I can see why you chose this map. This is a very interesting way to play the matchup. Very interesting way to play the map. Kind of a unique one. Taking all of the strengths of Protoss right now into action. And really making few mistakes through the way. I actually will go as far to say that ZOUN, this far, hasn't made a single mistake.
Yeah, I would say one thing though is that he should have probably not recalled his Void Rays to defend against that attack. It seemed like DRG was just trying to scare him. It wasn't really committed. He did have 1 Void Ray at home to deal with the roaches as well. So I think if he could have just attacked with the Void Rays, he could have taken down that dirt base there. Instead, he recalled, and that gave DRG some time to make up those Hydralisks. Here we go. DRG is gonna go ahead and start noticing. Is this enough Hydralisks? I'm not sure though.
I'm not sure. I feel like this is a very unlucky timing. All of the upgrades are kicking in for ZOUN, and you can see in those Hydras just melt into the Zealots and the Archons. Archons are also falling though. These Void Rays are basically everything that stands between DRG and the rest of the map, but Void Rays are not really falling yet. Guardian Shield from these sentries helping so much with this defense, but it looks like most of the army of both players is gonna be cleared out. Losing the queens though is just too much of a blow. ZOUN is gonna take a very, very clean game 1 victory, and DRG is gonna fall in game 1 after, I will say, not so clean defense against the adepts mostly.
Yeah, just didn't have, kind of the whereabout to see what was incoming, and suffered too much damage. I think 15 total drones going down during that adept timing push, and you know what, couldn't really do any counter damage after that. So he was kind of behind throughout most of that game. It was up to him to kind of pull out a rabbit out of the hat, but just wasn't quite able to. He tried it with the Nidus Hydralisk, but he just didn't have enough economy to push out enough Hydralisk to make it work.
There were a lot of sentries out. There are 3 Archons with a Templar Arc, as I was talking before. And like everything was just right on time for ZOUN. Like charge and +1 just being done like a second before the Hydras made their way into that acceleration zone. So all the pieces of the puzzle were there for ZOUN. They were not for DRG. And I have to say there was a long sight game from ZOUN, like seeing very far, having very clean game sense, and just clutching a victory very much in his grasp at just the right moment. A very solid game.
Indeed. All right, let's go ahead and introduce our lovely players here on Pillars of Gold.
Top right and corner is where the red Zerg player is gonna spawn. Currently in behind 1 point in this best of 5 series against his opponent. He's gonna have to win this to tie up the score and have a shot, a better shot, at clenching the series. It is Africa Freaks, DRG.
And spawning here at the bottom left corner of the map, he's the blue Protoss player from team of Alpha X with a nice game 1 win. Can he get game number 2? It is ZOUN.
So we're on Pillars of Gold. Once again, I can see ZOUN going for a similar game plan, just due to the very similar nature of Pillars of Gold and Jagannatha. Of course, these two maps have some differences. Pillars of Gold is considerably smaller, considerably wider, and considerably more open, making it an even better Stargate map. But DRG is one of those players who kind of adapts a lot to how a series goes. So I don't know, I'm gonna call it right here, right now. I think we're gonna see some fireworks this game.
Yeah, I could definitely see him going for that Stargate opening once again. This is a map where the main base is pretty... I mean, I wouldn't say it's the largest main base, but it is pretty deep. You see that the pylon in the main base of ZOUN is kind of towards the bottom side, so it kind of forces the Overlord to commit and fly in. Sometimes these Zerg are too afraid to go all the way in because they're afraid that their Overlord will get sniped. So you could definitely see... Oh, actually, as I say that, I'm going to go ahead and open up with a Twilight Council. What do you think of this, Akon?
Twilight Council makes for a very solid and defensive early game if you want, but I really doubt this is going to be a defensive Twilight Council. I think it's just gonna try and go for a quicker Glaives timing, but going for that Twilight Council and the Robo right now, it's gonna make this way more committed.
Yeah, it looks like he is throwing down the robotics facility, so we're going to see some warp prism action. But in the meantime, the first adept has made his way to the natural of the Zerg. It's going to go ahead and get a little bit of a scouting information. Actually, it's just chilling here. Just sightseeing around, you know, looking at the bush, trees, the rocks, the boulders.
Queen is just going to poke it and send it away. But ZOUN is going to just take confirmation that there is a fur base incoming, and just by that information, he's gonna know nothing is gonna come his side of the map anytime soon.
Alright, Glaive once again, but this time skipping the Stargate. Gonna go ahead and throw down 2 additional for a total of 4. So we're gonna go ahead and see that classic 4-gate Glaive adept timing that Zest was so famously known for, especially back in late 2019 and partly throughout the year of 2020. Hasn't seen a lot of it these days just because Zergs has kind of adapted to it a little bit, but it's still a great build.
We see DRG being very much prepared for it though. Like, this Roach Warren is so early, 14 Zerglings incoming, even a Spine Crawler is playing that much more cautiously this game. And having this much creep spread, I highly doubt DRG will be surprised by any shade coming.
I don't like that spine crawler placement. I feel like that should be in one of the main bases, the mineral lines, because that's where
Yeah, see.
the adepts are mainly attacking. Oh, nice surround here by DRG.
That's a huge surround. Queens are already on top of the Warp Prism as well. This is a little bit of a disaster for ZOUN, who just has to sacrifice half his adepts, save these 4, and go ahead and get another Warp Pin. Probably gonna try and go into the main. DRG is on top of that. It's gonna send a couple roaches out just to poke at these adepts and check their position. But it is highly unlikely that ZOUN is gonna find any significant damage with this. And he's even warping more adepts, which is something I don't like. I love when Protoss players at this stage already start going, okay, I'm just gonna make him a couple Immortals. Yeah, I like this Immortal going out. And drop a Templar Archives immediately after, start charge, and just transition as quick as possible. Just raise that tech, which is something you can do because the Zerg player has to play a little bit more cautiously, or just go all in with Ravagers, Roach, and Zerglings. ZOUN is gonna be kind of slow on this. So DRG is gonna be very much ahead.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like ZOUN is not even gonna attempt a third base here. He's going for a 2 base all in a timing, I'm assuming here, as he is throwing down that forge. Probably get to +1 attack and then make a or actually, you know what? Just gonna go ahead and go for a slower third here, as he does finally get a third. But definitely DRG is, you know, ahead at this point of the game.
That's a very bold third base. Of course, with this Warp Prism, the Observer, and these Adepts on the third of DRG is gonna have plenty of map control, to be honest. Just not even map control, more like map pressure, I guess I should call it. And by just that, he's gonna try to get a slower transition. He's gonna get Blink, which is gonna slow him down quite a bit. Not having a Robo Bay, having Blink, not having Templar Archives. I guess this is just a heavier gateway style, which I don't think is gonna be the best thing you can do right now, because you're gonna be most of the times on even upgrades with your opponent.
And also on this map especially, because this map is pretty wide open. There's a lot of open spaces where, you know, you're not going to be able to force field entirely. And so Blink just doesn't quite, you know, do well without that. You know, kind of if you can combine Blink Stalkers with Sentries, yeah, that's good. But in a map like this, it's just not as effective.
I mean, it works fine against Ravagers if there are like heavier number of Ravagers, which is curiously exactly what DRG is going for, and ZOUN is having good scouting about it. So I like the possibility that just dodging those biles, getting on top of the Ravagers, getting bonus damage against those Roaches, and all those stuff climb together. But once Hydras are out, suddenly Stalkers become quite outdated. Like, in this matchup, they work similarly to Roaches, that they just become less and less strong the more the game goes on. So I don't really know about this. What is this Immortal doing all alone in between all these circles as well? That's not where you want to be, buddy. Just immediately. God. So ZOUN getting a ton of Stalkers, going aggressive. That's exactly what he has to do. Tons of Sentries. Just drop these force fields down, but there are so many Ravagers out. He has to play this immensely well, and that's a huge concave coming from the Zerg player. Already a bunch of Sentries falling down to the biles. Hardly any dodge coming from the side of ZOUN, and DRG is taking a very good engagement. Immortals doing their best at destroying this Roach army, but the Ravagers are just not falling down. I haven't seen a single good aggressive Blink. These Immortals are not doing anything else. The Warp Prism is down, and the whole army of ZOUN is gonna be cleared in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few Adepts here at the Naturals. That should be cleaned up fairly easily. And after that, I mean, DRG can pretty much go for a counterattack. He is ahead 59 army supply to 16.
I mean, these are a considerable amount of drones killed. Like 18 drones killed right here. Like, it's huge. Like, it's gigantic. But it's also something that should have never happened, to be honest. On the side of DRG, he really had enough stuff to deal with those depths, and just lost way too many drones for possibly no reason at all.
Yeah.
So now he's gonna be so ahead in tech though, like having those lurker then, having the possibility to tech up without ZOUN having anything to contest it. It's gonna be huge into the next few stages of the game. DRG has this game in his grasp, and ZOUN needs to do something very, very quickly before this game spirals out of his control.
Yeah, I mean the lurkers are on its way, and really, if you look at ZOUN's army, doesn't really have anything to deal with them, right? He is making a few immortals, but you need something to at least like some storm to kind of attack the or weaken the Hydralisk and get on top of the lurkers, but he doesn't have that. He doesn't have disruptors or anything, so it's looking quite kind of grim here for our Protoss friend.
Yeah, that's one. There's one unit that kind of has these multiple tricks to deal with both Vipers and Lurkers. Of course, the Eye Templar being able to get that feedback on top of everything, being able to drop those storms and just get a little bit of an advantageous engagement due to the nature of the Zerg army being so immobile. Even if, like, it's not really mobile, it's just hard to maneuver. Let's call it like that. But this is just not happening on ZOUN's side. He doesn't have disruptors to hard counter everything, even when Vipers are out. He doesn't have a Stargate to hard counter everything. So he's just gonna go all in for the Hail Mary right here, right now. And this is gonna be a tough fight for him. DRG is kind of out of position, so he's gonna take this base. It's a kill, not even a cancel. But now there are lurkers out, and with a single observer, this can be very nasty for ZOUN.
Yeah, but that was a pretty good trade. I mean, taking down the hatchery without losing anything, and now he's gonna actually probably get out with his army unscathed here. But he's got to be careful. He does not want to walk into those lurkers. And we actually see a nice War Prism drop at the same time, which is going to go ahead and I think going to do a quite significant damage. There's really nothing in the main base.
The triple abduct, 3 mortals going down without taking anything into the grave with them. And these are 3 less robo units, which is kind of huge for ZOUN. This depth run by is actually dealing damage. This hive is curiously enough halved in health. But we see also run by of roaches on ZOUN's 4th base, which is taking quite a lot of probes down. Now Hydras, Ravagers and everything else are clearing out those few deaths, while the main army of ZOUN is just trying to keep creep at bay. And now Stalkers are doing something against those lurkers, but the numbers DRG have are just kind of out of control. The things I was saying before kind of happened. Right now, this game is very much out of ZOUN's control, and it's really just DRG to lose.
Yeah, ultimately, he does just not have the army composition to deal with what DRG has. He did get some nice maneuvers, kind of put some good pressure on DRG, but there's just so much better army and better quality army for DRG here.
Yes, I'm dealing a lot of damage through the map, but DRG is just not backing off. He's keeping a bunch of lurkers back home just in case. Now these disruptors are gonna try and get some damage. These are nice disruption novas, not even that great. 33 drones are falling back home for DRG. So he kind of has to end the game right here, right now, but I really feel like he can do this pretty easily. That's a lot of energy on these Vipers. One of them gets feedback back to half health, but it's not gonna be much happening right now. ZOUN trying to pincer move the army of the Zerg player and actually manages to deal quite a lot of damage to it. These lurkers not being here, making this army quite a lot less strong than it is supposed to be. Feedback going on both of the Vipers, gonna make them very, very weak. And it looks like ZOUN is taking quite a nice engagement. He's still gonna lose his natural, still gonna lose his 4th, gonna take down so many drones for that. But now the lurkers are here, and with the lurkers is gonna be coming a sweet swift victory for DRG. I feel like these disruptors have to do so much work. The Viper is gonna head out a little bit too ahead of themselves. And now these lurkers are actually very, very down in health. There is no observer with this, but the lurkers still need to back off. Finally, the observer comes right here, right now. There's one disruptor at the ready, and ZOUN, for the time being, survives after dealing a sizable economical damage to his opponent. The army of DRG is still very, very strong, but ZOUN can recover.
Yeah, surprisingly, he actually took a really nice trade there, especially with no lurkers for the majority of that fight, only joining up at the latter stages of that battle. And now all of a sudden, I feel like ZOUN actually has a chance, when a minute ago I would have said never. I would have said it was pretty much a DRG game to lose.
That was a very, very patient fight for ZOUN, just waiting to have just exactly the right amount of units, just abusing the fact that there were no lurkers, so he could have the upper hand for doing some maneuvers around the army of DRG. No lurkers to actually cut him off from certain areas. That was a little bit of DRG's downfall, but now another big fight is gonna happen. Viper is kind of high in health, in energy, sorry, and there is no high tempo with this. The Archons are gonna find themselves in a little bit of a huge Ravager army. Still gonna take quite a good trade. Viper is gonna go down at the cost of one of the Immortals. Now the Ravagers are trying to pile everything down. Gonna find a few good piles. But now the Lurkers are gonna try to maneuver around this army. Ravagers are falling, so are the Archons. Immortals are everything that's left standing. But there is no Observer with this. And all of the army of ZOUN is kind of just falling. Now the Observer is over here. One Lurker not gonna do much. But these Ravagers are dealing so much damage.
Oh man, imagine if there was a Warp Prism here. I think it would have been so much better for ZOUN. But I mean, look at the game right now, the state of the game. Pretty much only one base for ZOUN versus, I guess, the 2.5 bases of DRG. So I mean, as long as DRG kind of doesn't trade out, you know, very, very badly, I think he should be fine. But I mean, it's going to be up to ZOUN to kind of make some moves to try to crawl himself back in this into this game.
Okay. Not even take base counting, not even taking base count into consideration. Like right now, the income of DRG is at least being tripled the one of ZOUN, considering how much gas he's collecting compared to his opponent, which is of course going to be the most important thing at a 18th minute game. So yeah, just that amount of gas is gonna make ZOUN's life a little bit hellish. So once again, DRG finds himself in a very good position, very much in control. Economical advantage is on his side after struggling so much actually to keep a good drone count throughout the game. He just kind of brute forced through the Protoss army once or twice and finds himself at a interesting position.
Yeah, we see that looks like ZOUN is going to look for an attack here. He does actually have a nice decent amount of Immortals, which might do pretty well against the Roaches and Ravagers that DRG has, and actually is kind of away from his Lurkers too, so this actually might work out really well for ZOUN.
Lurkers are a little bit too far away from this position. Finally, a Warp Prism is gonna help with this fight, but the Vipers are there to drop down a Blinding Cloud and 2 Abducts. Another great fight for the Zerg player who's just waiting here on creep for ZOUN to make one misstep and just instantly punish him. Vipers are just too good at that.
Yeah. Oh man, now he's gonna get chased by this ball of Roaches, Ravagers, and Hydralisks, and ZOUN is on the run.
Yeah, not even the Archons can save him from taking too much damage. And even on even upgrades, right now, this Zerg army is just packing too much of a punch. More than doubling the supply of his opponent. DRG is gonna go for the decisive maneuver here at the 4th base of ZOUN. It looks like this is a desperate defense from the Protoss player. Feedback is gonna go on top of one of the Vipers, which is actually very ready in health. But the rest of the army of ZOUN is just not keeping up with the Hydras, with the Lurkers, with the Ravagers, with the Roaches, and everything else. It looks like GG has come, and the score is stayed once more.
Really great defense there by DRG, holding off that initial, Glaive Adept's timing. And once you hold that off with relatively little losses, it gets really hard for the Protoss. I mean, the great thing about that build is that, with the Adepts, you can force out a lot of units from the Zerg, or you can also snipe down a lot of drones, but didn't really happen for ZOUN. Wasn't able to even go attempt to shade into the main or natural because he got caught off in the middle. And with 0 drone kills from that, and with a relatively little units being built, as he made a lot of links but a few roaches, DRG was pretty much in a great position for the majority of that game.
Yeah. I still have to say the game was looking pretty messy nonetheless, which says a lot about how ZOUN was able to manage that super bad situation. And DRG kind of misstepping quite a bit too many times, almost finding himself behind in a game which is completely in his grasp. So still was a little bit too close for comfort for DRG in that spot. But,
yeah, I agree.
We're going into game 3, so a whole new story is about to be told. Here on Oxide, top right hand corner, it's gonna be where the red Zerg player is spawning, playing for a freak of freaks. It is DRG.
And spawning here at the bottom left corner of the map with a nice blue paint on his building, playing for Alpha X. Make some noise for ZOUN. Interestingly enough, does not wall off in the bottom, going for a forge behind a gateway here. So we got some cheese coming out of ZOUN. Let's see how.
That is an interesting cannon rush.
What? That actually is a full block? Oh my goodness.
That's a double pylon, not even blocking the probe off. He's just gonna go straight for the cannon out of 2 pylons, which is the most expensive and considerably safer way to do this. Both probes are very ready now. This probe is 1 tick from dying, and it actually goes down. I think the cannon rush is kind of over right now, but it's gonna be, I think, at least 1 cannon going up. This cannon is gonna be cancelled 100%. Here comes the cancel, but there is 1 cannon up right now. Oh, another cannon actually tries to go up. There's gonna be a few dead drones to try and stop this. It's gonna be stopped, it's gonna be cancelled, but 2 more are coming. ZOUN is super committed into this. The rush is totally not over. And this leads to an interesting spot, because these are 3 pylons, 3 cannons, 3 cancelled cannons. Actually, now it's gonna be a pylon cancelled as well, and it's gonna be a bunch of Zerglings. The game is very, very messy right now. Another cancel, drones and Zerglings doing kind of a great job, and I think ZOUN losing this probe is gonna put him very, very well behind.
Oh man, I feel like, I don't know, I can't say exactly who came out on top. I feel like this is pretty even. Yes, ZOUN committed to a lot of buildings, but that's a lot of drones that wasn't mining for the longest time, and actually forcing a lot of Zerglings out from DRG. The problem is that ZOUN did not build in the low ground, so he's got to rebuild or build that wall off on the natural before those links goes across the map.
I don't know about this. I feel like you're right. The game has basically just reset.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like
an even stage, but I also feel like DRG is gonna be like, if it comes to a tech race, DRG is gonna be ahead in that regard. I doubt it's gonna come to a tech race though. I doubt these 2 play. I feel like ZOUN won't try to rush too much stuff right now.
Well, keep in mind that ZOUN did not go for just a mainly forge. He did go for the forge after the gateway, so he wasn't totally behind in the tech. He looks like he's going to throw down the Stargate. So yeah, I feel like pretty much the game has reset, like you said, and we'll see how both players go on from here.
The Stargate is as you mentioned, it's a kind of an interesting decision. Gaining map control in a very, how to call it, unclear scenario, most of all, is probably a good thing. Like, being the player to get map control when a game gets messy is can lead to your opponent making some decision mistakes, and you having just that advantage in making decisions. But that can be a double-edged sword, because Stargate is not gonna save you if DRG decides to go for some quick timing, which I doubt is gonna be the case, but it's always a possibility.
Yeah. Looks like DRG is going to throw down his Ro4. The board rate is about to get on top of his overlord. So this is going to be the first time, the first sight DRG has on what ZOUN is going for. He knows that there's not going to be a Glaive Adepts follow-up. He knows it's not going to be like DTs or something. It's just going to be a Stargate follow-up. And DRG can pretty much at this point just drone up like a madman. Just gotta make sure you got some spores, some queens in position, and yeah, just macro up and start teching up.
There's a Twilight Council incoming, oracles to get them up control. We were talking about a lair coming from DRG, and most of it in this stage of the game is just the two players kind of checking on each other to see what they have. ZOUN is gonna decide to go for Resonating Glaze, which is gonna try to keep DRG in check. But DRG is kind of outgrowing him. Like, he's droning like crazy, like you were saying. Like, he's very much ahead in workers. He's gonna drop down that tech quite a later stage. But considering this started off with a cannon rush, a 6-minute Hydra Den, I wouldn't go as far to call it late. I actually think it's pretty much on time, like even early, relatively early.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that ZOUN is not going to put any hard pressure on him, so he's kind of free to feel at ease to just, tech up really, really quickly. And yeah, those Hydralisks will do pretty well against what ZOUN has. I mean, right now ZOUN, he's going for a Glaive Adept follow-up. Actually, you know what? If he can get enough Glaive Adepts on top of those Hydralisks as they pop out, I mean, might work out actually.
Very good scouting from DRG with the Zerglings. Gonna find 3 Adepts being warped in. 3 Adepts at this stage mean only one thing, but there's still so many making their way into the natural of the Zerg player. Hydras are popping out right now, as well as Queens getting in a very good spot to defend against these Adepts. Still, a bunch of them are gonna fall, but the Adepts are falling in even greater numbers. Now they find their way with a shade into the main, gonna drop a couple drones before going down, and now a bad trade is about to happen because there are so many Hydras out. But DRG wasn't like super clean at dealing with those Adepts. He's still gonna lose quite a bunch of drones, as well with the Oracle helping. That's a huge stasis ward happening in the third base. It looks like in the end everything is gonna be cleared aside from the Oracle, which is gonna escape. And that's some serious damage right now. But ZOUN is very starved for units and tech, which is something in which DRG has a pretty sizable advantage.
Yeah, I mean, he's going for Blink Stalkers, which absolutely does not deal so well against what DRG has. He got Lynx and Hydralisk. That's what, really what counters Stalkers. So, I mean, if he had Storm already, maybe, but he doesn't even have Storm. He doesn't have Colossus. He doesn't have anything to deal splash damage. Oh yeah,
like without Zealots, everything is just gonna fall so fast for ZOUN. Like there's not really much in terms of just overall bulkiness in the army of ZOUN. There's just one Immortal, and then everything else is just gonna instantly die to high DPS units such as Hydras.
Yeah, and I mean, he does smartly warp in sentries to deal with those Hydralisks, because what the thing with Hydralisks is they don't have corrosive bios to break those force fields, so they do, you could force field a good chunk and kind of kill a fleet of them, and then kind of slowly cut them off. Then yeah, you can hold on, but smartly DRG backs up, gets the Lurker tech, and that is gonna be pretty deadly against what ZOUN has. Look at that army that ZOUN has, just mainly gateway units.
Like, if there were a lot of Bane lanes, I could actually think, okay, this army is not that bad. But right now, like, the numbers are pretty high for ZOUN. There's still a lot of damage going on, actually. Honestly, this this Guardian Shield is really doing a good job. But Lurkers and Hydras are just dealing so much DPS. Another Warp Beam of Adepts are gonna try to make their way past. They're gonna break through the Hydras, actually. But there's still so many Lurkers in that position, ready to deal with the Protoss army. The Protoss army is gonna be quickly dealt with in the last few bits, being these Adepts just trying to make their way desperately into some mineral lines to get even more damage. In the end, just shades left and right, which are not really accomplishing anything. DRG is gonna get game number 3 and get to match point in this best of 5 semifinals.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid win there by DRG. Pretty convincing.
Yeah, indeed. Pretty rough for ZOUN. Like, we've seen like DRG really not make the same mistake he did last game. He didn't lose grasp of the game in any considerable way. And it just went like smooth sailing after the cannon rush. I think just overall better decisions on the side of the Zerg, and it just was really that. I kind of like ZOUN's game plan, but he's just not finding the damage that he did find in the first game of the series.
Yeah, it almost worked. If he didn't lose his probe, I think he could have actually gotten that cannon rush up. The thing is that DRG also kind of blundered it a little bit because he was attacking the first 2 pylons. The thing is that there was actually an opening behind the minerals, and then you could get on top of the probe that was trying to build the initial cannon. I think DRG, either he just forgot that there was an opening behind, or he just kind of had a brain freeze or something. But
yeah, it's kind of a clutch situation, which is very difficult to deal with for both players. That's why you don't see like that many cannon rushes at super high levels. Cannon rush is a perfectly viable strategy. It's a very strong way to play the matchup, actually. But it's just kind of hard to execute, contrary to popular belief. But let's head into introductions for the 4th game of the series here in the top left-hand corner of Romanticide. It's gonna be the Red Zerg player playing for a Freak of Freaks. Currently a match point, he needs one more to clinch the series. It is DRG.
And spawn here at the bottom right position. Playing for a, I was about to say a Freak of Freaks. Playing for Alpha X. He is the one, the only ZOUN. You see Alpha X and the Freak of Freaks, they all start with an A, so I was almost...
And they have a kind of an X sound to both.
Yeah.
Perfectly understandable. Alright, Romanticide. I kind of have a hard time reading this map in this matchup many times. But I also have to say that I'm quite not alone with this, because many different players in this matchup do very different things on this map.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like though this map is a great 3 base timing kind of map, just because
that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, because the 4th bases here are just so wide open or awkward. It's kind of, I mean, you have like 3 potential 4th bases here. So, I mean, it's up to the players to decide which one, but I think if you can get a nice 3 base timing, then it's actually pretty good.
It kind of reminds me a lot of, how was it called? Thunderbird? I think it was Thunderbird, the blue map. In a way that most of the games on that map were either ending like with a 3 base timing, just as you said, or were very, very clunky late game scenarios in which both players kind of try to maneuver around bases being very far from each other, but still being like kind of easy to just go around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, actually, as you say that, I noticed that this map actually has some quite large amount of macro games, just because the 3 bases are easy to take. So, you know, if they can hold on, it kind of draws out to the latter stages of the game.
yeah,
But then it comes down to, you know, if you can take down, you know, your opponent's bases, because they are, you know, as you expand, it goes further and further to the right and to the left side. So
yeah.
if you can, you know, do some multi-prong attacks here and there, you know, catch your opponent off guard, that usually works out very well.
Yeah, but as I was saying, like I use the word clunky because it just leads to game scenarios which are very hard to predict in a way that if you want to get past the third base, you're gonna have to accept some losses. So most of the players actually try to double expand on this map, with both like bases being very far. Like one of them, the one like on ZOUN side immediately to the left, is very much defensible. Like it's a very closed area. There's a lot of advantage coming with your army on the high ground and your opponent having to almost exclusively engage on the low ground. But it's still like kind of difficult to hold on different things at once. So it leads to these scenarios in which both players lose so much that it leads to late game scenarios, but in a clunky way. I don't know how to better describe it than clunky.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah. And
Anyway.
it looks similar to what is happening right now because we see a quick layer on one side, we see a double star. Actually, is it a triple Stargate? Yes, a triple Stargate on the other. This game is not gonna finish in a couple minutes.
Definitely not. I mean, we've seen this build mostly from Zest.
Yeah.
Has really made this build popular with the 3 Stargate Void Ray, and I like it. I mean, it is quite a big map, but I mean there are some spaces where you can abuse. Of course, if you go get on top of the third base hatchery, you can kind of run away behind that mineral wall, or you can run into the main base. So, a pretty good map to abuse those void rays.
Also, like the quicker path to your opponent's bases is gonna be through a corridor in between high ground, so it makes for very easy engagements for air units. But once you go past that corridor, that path, like this one right in the middle, the map suddenly becomes very open. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and this map is actually pretty huge main base, so it's hard for the Zerg to scout this earlier on. As we see, the Overseer does try to scout this, but just doesn't quite reach far enough. And right now, he's pretty much in the blind. I mean, I think he might have saw 2 Void Rays or just 1. I think just 1. Yeah, just 1. So I think he's still not quite sure what he's dealing with. He is making Hydralisk, so he's kind of blind countering this. So this is pretty nice. Oh, actually, you know what? As I say that, there is a second Void Ray. So yeah, DRG does know what's happening, because usually if you go with a single Stargate, you only get like 1 Void Ray. But if the Protoss does get more Void Rays, then that usually indicates that he's committed to more Stargate tech.
Also, like Hydra, Lurker, Viper, it's kind of the all-end army for Zerg nowadays in this matchup. Like, it's just good at dealing with a little bit of everything. It doesn't really excel at dealing with anything. Like, it's not like a highly specialized army, but it kind of makes for some good engagements if you know how to maneuver this. Like, it kind of counters a little bit of everything and gets countered by a little bit of everything. So I like Zerg players playing a glass cannon style in this matchup, because you either kill things very fast or you die very slowly. I feel like this is how this matchup works.
Well, both players are pretty much sitting back, kind of building up their army composition. We see DRG going for that Lurker Hydralisk tech army composition, but ZOUN, on the other hand, he is going to start transitioning into Storm with a lot of gateway units, with a lot of charge. He does, of course, notice the Hydralisk kind of tech tree, so getting that early storm is going to gonna be able to help deal against that. And then also, you know, if there is a lot of Hydralisk being dying to storm, there's not going to be a lot to deal with those Void Rays, and then the Void Rays can get on top of the Lurkers. Oh, gotta be careful though.
Oh, these Void Rays finding themselves not really in the right spot. One of them is gonna fall. And DRG creep spread is kind of starting to take place in a little bit of a dangerous way for ZOUN. Like, this creep is going uncontested for quite a bit by now. He's covering half the map already, and he's heading dangerously close to the 4th base of the Protoss player.
Yeah, that's going to be really, really key, because those Hydralisks are going to be able to get on top of those Void Rays and that Protoss army a lot better. Also, it kind of gives the Zerg a bit of vision, extra vision, to see if there's any counterattacks, because a map as big as this, counterattacks are really, really deadly, so you want to keep your eye out on that.
Also, like, this bottom left side is probably the only place in which DRG is kind of blind, with the overloads being spread out in many other different locations, and just the nature of these natural and fair base being very inaccessible, so you don't get anywhere close there. Having control of this like area of the map in which there is the 4th base of ZOUN is probably going to be the most important thing in the next few moments of this game. With carriers coming out, of course, this is gonna turn into a little bit of a cold war most than anything, but just both players really trying to outmaneuver each other. A huge stasis ward. It's gonna take only 3 Lurkers. Thought it was more. DRG is kind of trying to go for a decisive maneuver right now.
Yeah, I think ZOUN is trying to buy enough time to get those carrier tech out. He does have a really nice stack of cannons and shield batteries here at the left side. That's gonna definitely help buy a few moments of time for those carriers to get out. But those Lurkers are gonna go ahead and start sieging up.
Lurkers sieging up is gonna be a shield battery overcharge going on top of one of these shield batteries. Just gonna help so much keeping these cannons alive. Actually, so many Lurkers fall for, I'd say, no damage. Really. Yeah. There is a Spire on the way for DRG, which is going to be key. But you still have to kind of trade this army in a successful way, which can be very hard on this map. As I was saying, clunky map to play late game scenarios, especially for Zerg. Because Protoss on 4 base, they can get this target, they can get air control, just kind of try to avoid the clunkiness, just try to having a more maneuverable army around these edges with the cliffs and stuff such as that. But still, DRG is kind of in control of the map right now.
My god.
Not gonna be for long.
Yeah, these Lurkers are absolutely defensive. I'm not sure if DRG is trying to just sack them or something, but... Okay, there we go. The Hydralisk does finally come and defend those Lurkers, but those Lurkers were undefended for quite some time.
Yeah, DRG just trying to keep control of the map for a little while longer, waiting for his Spires to come up. One of them is already up, the other is incoming, getting those key units. But that moment in time in which he can gain control is kind of over. He's trying to buy some time to drop down the Spore Cores to keep creep spread in a significant place. But it's gonna become slowly harder and harder to do that, because these units are gonna start to not really trade that great with ZOUN's army.
Alright, ZOUN is finally trying to clean up some of the creep that has kind of spread it to his, I guess, his 4th base or so. But oh my god, look at these wall of Spore Cults. I love this.
Yeah, I love this as well. Like, this is exactly what you needed to do. These Lurkers get into Eye Templars. That's kind of great. Shield battery overcharge is gonna be used again to keep one of these cannons alive. DRG is just gonna get the heck away from there. Gonna trade some interceptors basically for free. That's money lost for ZOUN that you can see in the bank. Like, DRG making 13 Corruptors and still being so much ahead in the bank. And he just needs to find a good way to trade this army without losing it all at once. so you can replace it with higher tier units, of course. That's what I meant. And it's gonna be Dark Templars for ZOUN. Dark Shrine is gonna come. There's gonna be a bunch of Zealots trying to trade stuff down on the DRG side of the map. Not gonna find much. But still gonna distract DRG a little bit, which is not significant, but what is significant for ZOUN right now, aside from those huge Skytos army?
Alright, I think I'm liking the army composition of ZOUN, but I feel like you should add in a few Archons underneath just to help deal with the mass corruptors, but I'm not sure. I mean, got some nice storms there. Does morph at least one Archon, but does Spore Caller is get inching slowly but surely.
I really like the Tempest upgrade. The orange ball of death that deals more damage to structures. That is gonna be very, very important for him. Breaking this forest is, of course, the first thing he has to do to actually gain map control. Of course, Skytas getting map control means the Protoss has won the game. It is something that it's very difficult to do because DRG is just gonna make a ton of Spore Crawlers and have just these Vipers sharking around and being deadly. Tempests are pretty much clutch right now.
Yeah,
without those Tempests, there is no way ZOUN can win. Now a big fighting is incoming. Void Ray's just gonna be yoinked by DRG into the Spore Forest. And you can see his bank really outgrowing the one of ZOUN.
These Tempests are doing some nice job shooting away some of these Overseer, but at the meantime, both of them are kind of in a stalemate right in the opening of... Oh, actually the Corrupt is going to make a beeline to the natural. I mean, it's not the most important thing as that base is almost mined out. So, I mean, ZOUN, I think, can't afford to lose it. He still has a lot of bank. But, yeah, he is expanding towards the left side there.
It's just, like, some free damage, I guess. Like, you have to remake that map just due to the fact that there's these two geysers still have a lot of gas in them. So you have to still remake this base because you won't get an easier base to remake and just collect resources from it without being too hard too easy to contest. So having to spend 400 more minerals just for these, losing a little bit of gas income, it's a little bit of damage. You know, in these late game scenarios, once resources come so thin, even little bits of damage for free, it's something that shouldn't be, like, granted. And these two Tempests going down are certainly even worse.
Alright, a couple of Hydralisks, fleet of Hydralisks here onto the left side, but there's so much cannons there. Oh, nice targeting on that pylon there. Actually, ZOUN moves his entire army to the left side. That kind of leaves him a little bit vulnerable on the right side. But
kind of. There are no Broodlords. There are no, like, real units that can break through there. There are a bunch of Lurkers, but yeah, of course, just gonna kill a couple of cannons. Not gonna do much. The Corruptors can not really kill stuff, and ZOUN is kind of slowly reacting to this. He's like, okay, no Hydras, no way to kill my army significantly, and he's gonna bite back. Probably for the first time in this game, he's gonna deal some significant damage, and he's gonna force out actually 2k of bank out of DRG in 4 Ultras and a bunch of Infestors. Nero can be so clutch right now, but if he gets on top of these Infestors before they can get on top of him, now that's a huge fungal growth. Here comes the yoink of the mothership, and he will go down in an instant. Huge storms going left and right, but ZOUN is taking a very, very bold fight, decisive maneuver through the map, and gonna break down so much of DRG bank.
Oh, wow.
These Ultras trapped into the main, and they're gonna go down in a jiffy. Huge fight from ZOUN. The Protoss player biting back, and that's a dead hive, everybody, and that is just so much damage.
DRG is just falling apart, and now all his production buildings under siege here onto the main. He does have a lot of corruptors, but look at all those yellow corruptors. A huge storm is going to do significant damage there, and now DTs, or actually DT does get cleaned up here, but I'm not sure what DRG can do.
Oh, there's only one Eye Templar with this. I don't really believe too much in the capability of these Archons to do Void Rays to do too much. The Archons, of course, gonna get cleared by the Lurkers, and even after dealing so much damage, ZOUN will be forced to recall. But I call it that a huge success.
Yeah, now DRG down to 13 workers. He's losing hatcheries left and right. He's got no tech, as all his production buildings, his tech buildings, were killed off, and now ZOUN does tie up 2-2 and force it into a game number 5.
These zealots run by in the top right were just a nail in the coffin. Just DRG realizing he didn't have much. And, well, guys, he just went around the army of his opponent and just won.
Yeah, he's like, you build a wall of spore colors at my front. You know what? I'm just going to bypass that. You know, I'm just going to buy some time. You know, leave some High Templars just to keep you at bay, make the push a little bit even slower. And I'm just going to go ahead around and just kill all your stuff.
And as much as I love this game, like, I feel like it was super entertaining to watch. It made me like Romanticide even less, which is kind of a feat, to be honest. I really, in this matchup at least, I really dislike the map. I explained the reasons. These reasons kind of happened this game. And it was a huge, long, and clunky game that led to one player being extremely rich and still losing the game. Because it's just such an unbreakable 4-base position. And such a easy way to get to those late game armies, which are so hard to outmaneuver around, and then just probably a little bit of a small mistake costing him the game. And yeah, I don't like Romanticide. Well, another game, another story, and it's the 5th one of the series, going all the way to Ace Match, where the two players are gonna fight for their place into the finals here on Submarine, top left hand corner. Hailing from Korea, playing for Africa Freaks, it is DRG.
And spawning here at the bottom right. He's the blue Protoss playing for Alpha X. Give it up for ZOUN. Alright, Submarine LE for game number 5. Of course, this has been known as the shortest map in the ladder map pool, alongside of what's the other one again?
Oxide.
Yeah, Oxide. Yeah, I believe it's 33 seconds to get from one end to the other. So pretty quick distance there, and we'll see if either of these players utilize that short distance. But yeah, Submarine.
Yeah, it is totally likely. But just bringing your lifeline in a 5th game of a series on a short map, it's just something so hard to really go with your guts, right? Just go, yeah, okay, I'm gonna play the map. I'm gonna go down aggressive and just gonna try to bring my opponent down very quickly. You're gonna have this kind of a feeling from your guts in this map, but actually following it is a whole other beast, really. Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, no worries. But yeah, looks like we're gonna have a Twilight cancel, so I think ZOUN has some inkling of maybe going for 4-gate Clave Adept timing. I mean, this is a map, if you're gonna go for that build without a Warp Prism, that, I mean, could definitely do it.
This is a map to go for.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there is one chance you're gonna try to just cut some corners from this build, this is just that chance. But it's a big risk.
Yeah.
Because it leads you to being quite enough. Yeah, we see the robot being taken, which is a, let's call it a more calculated risk. But still, that's an only, well, not only a timing attack. And on submarine, short map, if your timing doesn't really deal enough damage, you can quickly find yourself just overwhelmed by your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, I think DRG should have a nice inkling, because the initial, gateway and cybernetic core was researching at the same time. So he made the adepts and the cybernetic core warp gate tech at the same time. Usually when Protoss go for a Stargate, they actually delay the warp gate tech a little bit to get the extra gas into the faster Stargate. And then on top of that, he opened up with Adept and then followed up by a Stalker, which is a nice telltale sign as well. So I think DRG should have an inkling, and he's immediately throwing down that Roach Warren.
And a lot of Zerglings on the way as well. I still feel like exactly as DRG is doing, having Overlord spread Zerglings on the scouting locations and a good creep spread is the most important thing to deal with this. And as you can see, as soon as he sees a little bit of a glimpse of this Warp Prism, he immediately calls all of his Zerglings back home, getting ready in one spot to get around these Adepts. And that's so much creep already. Just trying to get on top of the Adepts, just forcing this shit to never happen. It's gonna be a council, of course. And ZOUN is gonna need much more army to break through. Army I doubt he will ever have at this stage.
Yeah, I feel like ZOUN actually doesn't really have to commit too much, because he's actually made DRG really super scared, cutting workers off at 34. Usually you want to cut off worker at like maybe 40-ish or so, but actually cutting really quickly, as he is very terrified of this attack here.
That is exactly the perfect moment to just say, okay, you do this, I don't mind this at all, and I'm just gonna start making Immortals, just gonna start charge, maybe drop a Templar Archives, double Stargate, that's different, I guess. It still follows the same concept, in a way. It still took that decision, in a way I wasn't really expecting though.
Oh wow, that was a huge pick off there.
Yeah, that's why I hate not having Immortals at this stage, because right now, if DRG decides to walk through the map, you're just dead.
Yeah, he is trying to he needs to buy some time with this Warp Prism to kind of keep the Zerg army at bay at home, so that he can build enough Void Rays in order to defeat this. Now, look at the Worker tab. DRG has suddenly actually caught up significantly in the Worker tab, as he did defend that pretty easily. But yeah, losing that group of Adepts was just really bad for ZOUN. I think he should have at least recalled it once he got surrounded.
I mean, this is still a lot of Zerglings that are not really doing anything. There's no Baneling Nest. They're probably never gonna do too much. I feel like the window in which DRG could have probably just went with his guts and ended the game as kind of best right now. And all these Zerglings gonna struggle so much at finding any possible point of damage. So these are, like, as you see them right now, they're just as good as that. They're just like dead weight to just waste their resources. And I feel like this works a little bit in favor of ZOUN. The economical advantage of DRG though is still gonna hurt.
Yeah, for sure. And now DRG, not only is he droning up like crazy, but he's spreading that creep further and further. Is halfway across the map. But these Void Rays can be the ace card that ZOUN can utilize to kind of crawl himself out of this little hole here. There aren't a lot of actual anti-air. The Hydralisk just being thrown down, so not gonna have those Hydralisks in time for these Void Rays. But those Void Rays actually gonna come back home, as he does scout with the Observer the move out of the Zerg.
I really don't like this from DRG. Oh, there's no shield barrier. Oh yeah, there is a shield barrier over here. Yeah, okay. once this Nexus goes up, there's no way you're gonna break through that. DRG immediately realizes the danger and goes back home to just have more stuff, be ready to strike, losing a bunch of drones a little bit too freely, like 5 drones dead. That should probably never happen. But DRG is kind of struggling to find like its own way into this game. And he's just not really doing much. Oh, okay, right now the Zergling run by is actually pretty scary. These Zerglings don't look like dead weight at all right now. Shield batteries are gonna be the main focus. ZOUN absolutely zero reaction to this. He's just now sending his units back home, warping in more stuff, sending the Void Rays in. But there's so many dead probes. The Nexus is about to go down. That it was never supposed to happen. ZOUN playing very much overconfident, just disregarding this huge mass of Zerglings, and just got beaten back where the sun doesn't beat, really.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. I think ZOUN did not have any recall energy on that Nexus, so unfortunately he was not able to recall. And now this is pretty much his all-in attack. I mean, he is down by 4-2 bases. He needs to make this work, but oh man, these Void Rays are dying quickly.
Just gonna get piled down. That's never going, something you never want to happen. Hydra's just absolutely destroying the army of ZOUN. It's gonna be a 3-2 victory in a very sloppy 5th game for both players.
Indeed.